Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cavin Balastar.
All right, can you all hear me? Nice, this is awesome. I mean, KetoCon, what Brian and Jimmy have done, this is huge for transforming medicine and healthcare. These conferences truly make a difference, so I want to thank you guys so much for putting this on, and everybody else that's a part of this. Norga got us. She kind of ran out of time, so you may have missed the phone number. So I put the phone number there because that was an excellent presentation, and she had even more amazing content. So if you want to check that out, it's right there. 503-966-2575. So, all right. I got about 30 minutes. What we're talking about is ketones for brain protection, rehabilitation, and optimization. First, who am I? So, 6 years ago, this was me. Whoa, feeding back over here. This was me. I sustained a severe traumatic brain injury and was in a coma. While I was in a coma, they did a CT scan, and it showed that I had bruised and swollen left eye, a fractured right ilium and a fractured right sacrum, which are hip bones, 3 cracked ribs on my left side. I had a nasal fracture, a lacerated or deeply cut left kidney, and both of my lungs were severely bruised. Now, my lungs being bruised, I was incapable of breathing on my own, so they were suctioning fluids from my lungs every chance they got. That was the chief concern. They did a scan on my brain, and it showed that I had a bruised left frontal cortex, bruised left temporal lobe, and a subdural hematoma, which is blood gathering on the outer layers of the brain. Now, as long as this list was, there was nothing on it that should have prevented me from waking, said my neurologist. So he made the call to try to reduce the amount of oxygen in order to encourage me to breathe on my own. My involuntary reaction to this reduction in oxygen was to bite down as hard as I could on the soft plastic tube that supplied my lungs with oxygen. So my blood ox desaturated to 60% of normal. Before that, the medical reports say I'm moving all 4 extremities. Afterwards, I was no longer moving the left side of my body. He realized he wasn't getting the whole picture, so an MRI scan was ordered, and it showed that I had a diffuse axonal injury. He walked into the room where my mother was, and he said, well, we know why he won't wake. He has a severe diffuse axonal injury. Mom was like, what's that? And he says, you get what you get. And he closed my case with neurology. So my mom did what any of us would do, and she consulted Google. Now, as I go through this, imagine your loved one has been given this diagnosis, and you're researching it, right? So first, let's look at Wikipedia. It says the outcome is frequently coma with over 90% with severe DAI never regaining consciousness. Those who do wake up often remain significantly impaired. Brainandspinalcord.org. About 90% of survivors with severe diffuse axonal injury remain unconscious. The 10% that regain consciousness are often severely impaired. And then Medscape. DAI, or diffuse axonal injury, results in instantaneous loss of consciousness. And most patients, over 90%, remain in a persistent vegetative state. This is what my family was told. And I'm in a coma there. The odds were astronomically against me even waking up, and if I did, well, chances were I would be a vegetable. But after several days in a coma, I beat the odds. Oh, I forgot. Severe diffuse axonal injury, we had that. And then I contracted some infections, MRSA and pneumonia. How could I forget those? Those were good fun. So I beat the odds, right? I woke up, and these are very flattering pictures right here. I didn't eat, walk, or talk for months. My left hand was completely flexed inward. I needed oxygen. I needed oxygen supplied to me. So I'm doing therapy right here, and I have an oxygen tank with me. Again, oxygen tank on the back of my wheelchair. And this was several months after my injury, and I was so excited to be outside at that point. Let's see, where are we? Okay, so I'm breathing through a tube in my neck. Looked like that. I was receiving nutrition through a tube in my belly. And when I say nutrition, the feeds that are given to patients that are unable to eat conventionally are mainly corn syrup. It's corn syrup, soy protein isolate, corn maltodextrin, calcium caseinate. Can I hear some gasps? I think I hear some gasps. It's awful, right? I mean, I was talking with Dr. John about this. Something needs to be done about this. So we're working with companies to create real food gastric feeds, which I'll get to, and ketogenic feeds, and I'm actually very interested in talking with suppliers here about what we can create. And seriously compete with the fortified corn syrup that's fed. It's not even, I mean, they charge quite a bit for fortified corn syrup. It's crazy. And hospitals pay it. Actually, insurance companies pay it. So, I digress. Here's what I looked like. I was emaciated as hell. I'm, again, eating through a tube, breathing through a tube. That was when I had the feeding tube through the nose. And I'm skin and bones in that. You can see my left hand is kind of flexed inward. That's called spastic hypertonia. So that's what I was dealing with that. And I'm holding the notebook because I wrote to communicate. So you guys will appreciate this note I wrote. So I was so hungry. I mean, if you're eating sugar for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're hungry. Clearly, I was not fat adapted, right? So after several months in the physical hospital, I was discharged, sort of. I mean, I was still technically in hospital, under hospital care, but I was receiving home nurse service and home therapies. But at this point, we could puree our own food and feed that through the gastric tube. And I began to regain my weight and go back to my pre-injury weight. Here we go. And that's a tough picture. Some people think I posed for that. Well, I mean, I did at the time, but some people think it was real or it's fake. And like, I dressed up and did that. No, I'm a photographer friend of mine visited me, took one look, and was like, I need to bring my photography equipment over. And so the next thing I know, I'm posing. I can't eat, walk, or talk, but I'm a model here, right? So interestingly, when I started eating real food again, that's when I took my first steps. So here's those. So that was about 6 years ago, to the month almost. And here was last week. So I do it in slow motion to send to my functional neurologist because they like to criticize and be like, you need more of an arm swing there. And you know, you're not getting enough bounce off that. So, and I want to talk about functional neurology a little bit. I mean, how did I go from where I was to where I am? And there's a lot that played into it, including functional neurology, which, like I send those videos too. But about 10 months post-injury, I was introduced to a nutritional protocol. And I began to regain clarity all of a sudden. And I was like, whoa. I've been in the fog for the past year. What happened? So I'm going through medical records, text messages, email, anything to understand what happened. At the same time, why did food make such a big difference? So I'm studying metabolism, neurometabolism, mechanisms of neuroplasticity, nutrients for synaptogenesis. And it's cool to be alive in this generation, because I'm relearning how to walk at my mother's house, yet I have access to so much information. And not only that, I have access to humans and doctors and people. So I was reaching out and making contact with people. So anyways, clearly nutrition matters. So what's the optimal diet to power my brain and to rebuild my brain? Well, there's lots of different dietary recommendations, as we all know. Vegan, paleo, juicing, pescatarian. I mean, it really doesn't matter. But what every single respectable nutritionist agrees on is that real food is a lot better than processed junk. So let's start there. I mean, we are the only species and only animal on the planet that needs to figure out what to eat. This is that animal. Oh no, there we go. This is that animal. And we have convoluted and confused things so much with special interests, with money, there's a lot of money to be made by misinforming people. So many conflicting guidelines, we're told stay away from fat and don't eat salt. And clearly with ketogenic metabolism, we need fat and we need salt. We need to replenish those stores. So we can all agree on real food. So I started taking a ancestral approach, more of an evolutionary approach to nutrition. I'm researching, and I reached out to Dr. Alex Vasquez, who is functional medicine god. This guy has 3 doctorates. He's a doctor of osteopathic, naturopathic, and chiropractic medicine. He's on the board of the Institute of Functional Medicine. He's written over 120 articles in peer-reviewed journals, over 20 textbooks, and he is an adjunct professor. At the time, he was an adjunct professor for Bastyr University. Anyways, I reach out to him, and he invites me to the International Conference on Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine. And so I go, and while I'm there, a lot happened there, but at one point I'm like, what would you say is the number one most beneficial diet? And he said, I would do a ketogenic diet. And I'd heard of a ketogenic diet, but I began to research a ketogenic diet. So looking at the research, there is a lot of good stuff here. Calorie restriction, ketogenic diet and infantile spasms. Here we go, cardiovascular disease. We've heard a lot of this already, and there's way more, of course, right? And then, this is a really interesting paper. Ketogenic diets on treatment of epilepsy, right? And what this is citing is a paper in 1911, and that was fasting. And then we also I mean, even in like ancient Egypt, somebody was having a seizure, they'd lock them in a room with no food, no water, and then their seizures would stop. And they'd be like, oh, the demons have left because we locked you in the room, right? But anyways, that's fasting. We've been doing it forever, right? So yeah, then we have 1911, 1921. 1921 was the first high-fat diet study on epilepsy. And I don't think I have time to show this video, unfortunately. But if you've ever heard of the Charlie Foundation, it's fantastic, and it's not just epilepsy. And it's championed by Meryl Streep as well.
Good
This
girl,
video's from
you did it.
1994.
A few months ago, my husband and I received a letter from
Yeah,
our
you got
friends,
here.
Jim and Nancy Abrams, who wanted to start up a new foundation in order to spread the word about the ketogenic diet. The letter began like this. Dear Meryl and Dawn, on March 11th, 1993, on his first birthday, I was pushing our son Charlie in a swing when his head twitched and he threw his right arm up in the air. The whole event was so subtle I didn't even think to mention it to Nancy until a couple of days later when it recurred. She said she had seen a similar incident. That was the beginning of an agony I am without words to describe. 9 months later, after literally thousands of a variety of epileptic seizures, an incredible array of drugs, dozens of blood draws, 8 hospitalizations, a mountain of EEGs, MRIs, CAT scans, and PET scans, 1 fruitless brain surgery, 5 pediatric neurologists in 3 cities, 2 homeopathists, 1 faith healer, and countless prayers. Charlie's seizures were unchecked, his development delayed, and he had a prognosis of continued seizures and progressive retardation. Then last December, we learned about an obscure diet consisting mainly of fats that benefited some kids with difficult to control seizures. The only institution that champions this diet is Johns Hopkins Hospital. Their dietitian, Mrs. Millicent Kelly, former dietitian in charge of Johns Hopkins Nutrition Clinic, has been perfecting the ketogenic diet for over 40 years. We took Charlie there. He started the diet, and since Christmas 1993, he's been seizure and drug-free. This is Charlie Abrams and his mom, Nancy. I've known him since birth. I've watched his delightful personality emerge through a normal first year. I witnessed his debilitating battle with seizures and medicines. I rejoiced with his family when the ketogenic diet stopped his epilepsy. And now I derive strength and joy like so many of his other friends as we watch him begin to develop again. It's too early.
So, how's Charlie doing today? He is happy and healthy, and I'm told he's no longer on the ketogenic diet even. It's amazing how these things can happen and how these remedies are out there. And I mean, that video was Meryl Streep, who everybody in this room knows. But so many people out there have no idea about the ketogenic diet, even though it works, right? So check out the Charlie Foundation, because now what they do is not only epilepsy, it is ketogenic diets for cancer, for all sorts of different conditions. All right, so yes, like I said, not just epilepsy, let's talk about brain injury. So, brain injury, I love this paper. This is great. Ketones and brain injury. So let's see what happens with brain injury. It says TBI models have been developed. TBI is associated with cerebral energy production with prolonged glucose metabolic depression and reduction of ATP, and cerebral injury is further exacerbated by free radical production. So we have free radicals and we have less ATP production. Too many toxins, not enough energy. So So we want more ATP, we want less free radicals. What also happens, we got a little dissolve effect. Okay, what also happens is the brain becomes insulin resistant. So let's take a look at these. So again, same paper, let's look at the highlighted part here. It says, in times of starvation and low insulin levels, ketones supply up to 50% of the basal energy requirements for most tissue and up to 70% for the brain. Now, although glucose is the main metabolic substrate for neurons, and I disagree with that, and more information has come out about that, and things are kind of off, but ketones are capable of fulfilling the energy requirements of the brain. So, first of all, insulin resistance, it doesn't matter if ketones are present. So now let's look at ATP and free radical production. So this paper, the title of it, ketones inhibit mitochondrial production, inhibit mitochondrial production of reactive oxygen species, which is another way of saying free radicals, basically toxins, following glutamate excitotoxicity, and then the rest we don't need to worry about. Glutamate excitotoxicity is a hallmark of brain injury. So let's highlight those. And then let's look down here in the abstract in the conclusion. In conclusion, we demonstrate that ketones reduce glutamate-induced free radical formation by these mechanisms. So that's awesome. We also, and enhancing mitochondrial respiration. So there you go. More energy, less free radicals. That's exactly what we want. So yeah, ketones improve all of these things. Moving on, insulin. So insulin, we know it's the hormone, it's the traffic cop of metabolism. It basically tells high blood sugar to either be stored as glycogen in muscles or in the liver, or to be stored as in visceral fat or adipose tissue. And the other thing is, with ketones are present, we don't need insulin. In fact, ketose requires low insulin levels. And if glucose is present in fat, if glucose is present in most of our body, we don't use fat for energy. Here's what's interesting. That's not the case in the brain, it doesn't seem. So here's a paper, ketones suppress brain glucose consumption. There it is, right? So what we see is data indicate that under conditions of ketosis, glucose consumption is decreased in the cortex and cerebellum by 10% millimolar of plasma ketone bodies. So it's a linear progression as well. Whoops, I just hit something wrong. Are we good? I think we're good. Okay, well, let's see. So the brain is pretty special. It uses about 20% of the oxygen we breathe, about a quarter of the calories we consume, and it is mostly fat. I'm here to talk about ketones for brain function and repair, for optimal brain function and repair. There is more to it. Ketosis was a great adjunct to everything I've been doing. Essentially, I've been entrenched in nutrition and neurorehabilitation since my injury, and I'm actually soon to publish. Whoa, what happened? KetoCon. Come on, that's my money slide. It's my last slide. And so, yeah, I think it's my last one. So yeah, I'm publishing a book. It's to be published in November. Oops. Oh no, did I just do that? I was like, oh, I gotta skip through this. Okay. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'm gonna let you do it. So I'm about to publish a book. It's called How to Feed a Brain, Nutrition for Optimal Brain Function and Repair. Can we put the slide on? I'm not gonna touch this anymore. There we go. So what's really confirmation for me is that Dr. Datis Karazian wrote the foreword. He's most certainly a hero of mine in neurorehabilitation. And then Dr. David Perlmutter, just what he said is phenomenal as well. He says his ideas are absolutely in line with current neuroscience and have the added validation of personal experience. The confirmation that I'm doing the right thing is so present with this, and I just feel really blessed to be here right now. So thank all of you. Also, if you go to feedabrain.com/KetoCon, I prepared four handouts as a starter kit for you guys. I don't give them away to others, so this is for KetoCon crew. Check that out, feedabrain.com/KetoCon. And I believe that's all I have for you. But if you have any questions, if we have time for 3 questions.
It's me.
Hello.
I wanted to tell you thank you, and I wanted to share some stories that I feel like the room would love to hear about your journey and what you're doing currently in your life. So my name is Carrie Ann, and I work for Revive Treatment Centers. The doctors who he sends the flips to, those are my doctors that I work for. And Cavin and I have been instrumental in people's lives who are so desperately waiting for answers with their loved ones in coma. He has been changing the feeding tube on so many patients and actually bringing them out of coma. One just the other day, we were riding down here from Dallas in the car, was talking to him on the phone who had not talked yet. We have one in our office right now getting neurorehabilitation who Cavin and I had been working with his wife for 5 months now. It's incredible everything that's happening with changing the feed. So when we see this with somebody who has a brain injury, it just gives us all the better. Like if we're here walking and all of us walked in here, we should be so inspired to change our feed for ourselves, because what we're seeing with people who actually have brain injuries and their successful journey out of where they are so desperate has been incredible. So thank you so much for all of your hard work.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And I really appreciate that. You know, the book, what throughout my recovery, I realized that I need to feed my brain, give it the right ingredients for my recovery. But for my recovery, it meant give my brain what it needs to function optimally. Because the brain, the body, repairs itself when it's given the right ingredients to do so. And when it's given the right ingredients to do so, to function, it's able to do so. That makes sense. All right, any more questions? Yeah, here we go.
So this just occurred to me. Has this ketogenic diet been used ever for cerebral palsy?
I'm not a doctor. But what I will say is, yes, I actually worked with someone. It wasn't cerebral palsy, but cerebral palsy-like symptoms. The bottom line is what we're doing is we're feeding the cells of the brain, and when it comes down to it, that's what matters. That's kind of the functional medicine approach, is feed the cells. Give the cells what they need. And so if the brain is not functioning optimally, if we supply what's missing, it's going to improve the overall condition. So I absolutely think that it's warranted.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you guys so much.